Meeting to order at 7:01 on Monday, what is it, September 18th, 2023. And we have some consent agenda items that include the minutes of the August 21st, 2023 school board meeting, the August 23rd, 2023 school board special meeting, board retreat, and September 13th, 2023 school board special meeting, closed session, some general fund vouchers and purchasing card transactions. Fund vouchers number 180273 through 180521 and 292390 through 292507, and purchasing card transactions dated 6/21/23 through 8/20/2023. We also have some professional staffing recommendations that there's no vote required for, so I would look for a motion to approve consent agenda items as presented.
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Kate.
I can second that.
Thank you, Megan. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And we will move on to, holy cow. That's a lot of stuff. Wow. Informational items.
Thank you.
We have representation from the McFarland Youth Center here this evening to present the McFarland Youth Center annual report. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks.
Take it away.
Well, at the risk of sounding like the old Newhart show, this is Sean, and this is also Sean. Yeah, right? I'm Sean Miller. I volunteer on the Board of Directors for the Youth Center, and this is Sean Close, our current head paid staff person, our managing director, so we'll get to his bio here in just a second, but thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. And I know many of you have seen a lot of these slides before, you know, about exactly what we do and some of the history and stuff, so we'll try and be brief with that, but if you want to interject and ask questions, that's fine, or save them for the end, that's fine too, so just let us know. But, okay, Angie, we can probably hit the next slide. So, some quick facts about the Youth Center. This is actually our 25th anniversary. The Youth Center was started by a group of McFarland High School students in 1998 and has been serving our community for 25 years now. I know he's a very humble father, but Mr. Mooney's two children were actually part of that original group that started the Youth Center.
Cool.
So, we had them on a Zoom call a couple years ago while we were celebrating, unfortunately, one of our old staff members that had been part of the charter group that had passed away. We're kind of having a celebration of remembrance for her, and there they were. One of which I knew, and one of which I worked with, and I didn't even know he was your son. But yeah, so 25th anniversary, and if anybody here or anybody listening to this is interested, after the parade this Sunday, we're going to have a little cake and ice cream just to celebrate. And we're going to be handing out flyers as we walk down the parade, so feel free to stop on by around noon or so and just help us celebrate and check out the Youth Center. So, our hours, we are open 3 to 6 during the school year on weekdays, and we are open 1 to 5 during the summer. And any non-school days during the school year, so like in-service days, you know, things like that, we're open 1 to 5. Attendance, typically we average 25 to 30 during the school year, and this is probably the first time we've been able to say that in 3 or 4 years since COVID. You know, really, obviously we had to artificially lower our attendance during some of the restrictions, and then it's been a challenge the last few years to build it back up, but we are now back to that level. Sean's done a great job reconnecting with youth, recruiting, having interesting programming, you know, that whole stew that it takes to really pump up those attendance numbers. In the summer, we're a little bit lower. We average about 10 to 20 a day. You know, people have stuff going on with vacations and things like that, and it's a little bit more spread out over those 4 operating hours during the summer days. Typically, we serve, and this is a very conservative number, over 100 unique youth per year. I'd say it's probably more 150, if we get back to our historical numbers. And if you think about that, that's between a quarter and a third of the middle school population. Comes at least once, during the year. On a month-to-month basis, we're probably 70, 80 different kids a month that we serve, and that number will be consistent throughout the year. So we're getting a pretty good representation of, different kids from the middle school. Okay, we go to the next one. So I'll have Sean introduce himself a little bit more and talk about some of his background.
Hi, my name is Sean Close. I have been working, I believe in October it's going to be 2 years.
Okay.
So, and then I was hired. Right before that, I worked for MSCR, and then before that, I worked for the Boys and Girls Club. I was the head of teen programming at the Boys and Girls Club, and I have a degree in sports management from Mankato State University. So our programming tends to follow a structure where we start off, we get all the kids in, give them a snack, have them kind of settle in. It's really exciting getting done with the day, have them come in, settle in, and then we have 1 to 2 structured programs a day. These are things we have set aside. We have a calendar we put out on our Facebook and our newsletter. We try to stick to that as closely as possible. Sometimes things change, but I want it to be there because some kid might see that, or a parent would be like, I want my kid to really do that. So we stick to that, I'd say 99% of the time. And then if I have to change it, I usually switch it up beforehand. And then the main thing we have with those is they go into a variety of different programming. So they're not the same thing every day. So on Mondays, we have art. On Tuesdays, we have science. On Wednesdays, we have service and fitness. On Thursday, we have a free day. And Friday, we do a cooking program. So I really like the cooking program. Kids like it too. I'd like to have a snack in the middle of the day. I'm not sure if everyone else does too, but that's a really important part of it. And these are all activities, like I said, it's the variety, it's keeping kids fun, but I also want to teach kids life skills. So the cooking program, I know it was a big change when I got out of the house and I had to cook all my own meals. So learning not just popping something in the microwave, but getting ingredients, what ingredients do things need, and then actually prepping and preparing a meal. Or we'll have a lot of want discovery activities. Like some kids don't know they like science till they get into a science project, or don't know they like art. Like maybe they think art's like some fancy thing with paints on an easel and something. Find out, hey, you can just draw something. Or we're making stuff out of toothpicks, and they find out that's what they really love. So I like to give kids life skills, and I like to have kids discover their passion. This is an example of our programming calendar. This is this month's programming calendar. So as you can see, it's each of the programs separated into days and color-coded. We'll also have special events sprinkled out throughout September. We didn't have any, but those will usually be yellow on there. We do a monthly movie night, which we are starting back up next month. And we have 6th grader days, which is a day where we set aside for 6th graders to kind of have the place to themselves, be kind of intimidating with all the big kids running around, so it's nice to have those kind of days. And then just anything else that's like a special activity will be located on there. And this is always available on our website as well as our Facebook and is part of our monthly newsletter.
Cool.
So this is an example of some of our programming. On the left was a Martin Luther King Day activity. This was at the downtown library. There was a bunch of workshops and various other activities there. It was actually a pretty cool one that I thought was really nice. It was about I'd have to remember it, but it was about rhyming and stuff, and how to express yourself through poetry, but jazzing it up so the kids, because poetry is a boring word, so just kind of trusting that. On the right is our kids playing Gaga Ball. We do that on the inside when it's acclimate weather or it's just cold outside, and just get the kids some energy out. They really enjoy that activity, get a little too competitive with it, but you know how kids get, so. All right, so we have all of the rec room favorites shown off on our left there. We got pool table, ping pong table, foosball table is a little out of frame, and we have a shuffleboard table. I really like these activities because it's a thing that keeps kids active, but they don't need to be outside, they don't need to move around a lot, don't need to have a lot of coordination, and you know, it's just fun. I love ping pong. And we can see kind of in there, we have some of our more open programming areas. We have a monthly Youth of the Month award that is Cordell Wright on the right there, and he is he's won it several times, so he's pretty good at winning that award, and we keep that throughout the summer, but also during the school months, they get to be part of the assembly. So I go to the assemblies, I announce them at the assemblies, and they get to have their own certificate and everything.
Nice. That's very cool.
On the left, we have, sorry, my eyesight is not great. Does that say science?
Yep.
Oh, it's slime. Yep, that is our #1 most requested science activity. Get a little chemistry, a little bit of art. Super popular with the kids. They like making it more than they even like taking it home. I always get a big pile of it at the end of the day I got to get rid of because they just wanted to make it and like touch all the gross stuff. On the right is basketball, which is our most popular outdoor activity. We have a hoop that all the kids play at and a court where they can shoot. And they also have, we have an open field on the other side of the youth center that we use for football and ultimate frisbee and other field sports. On the left, we have our By Youth for Youth grant. We were awarded a $2,700 grant to make care packages for the homeless. That is Cyan Carradine, and she has actually recently moved up to high school, so that was a big loss. She was involved in a lot of our programming. Great kid. Hoping to get her involved in part of like a youth work study program, not study, just work program, and. Yeah, that was a pretty proud moment there. That was a lot of work getting that grant in. Cyan did a lot of work, I did a lot of work.
This was at the countywide
Yes, this was
awards
this was at the
ceremony.
ceremony. The mayor was there, a lot of important people at that event. So we have that framed and on our wall. I'm very proud of that certificate. We just dropped those off the other day. So like, that took a long time in the making, but it's done, and it was a lot of work for staff and the kids who did 80% of it. So, great. Right, we have a field trip we took to Spartan Bowl, which is the #1 requested field trip. I tell them dream big, go wherever you want, and every time it's Spartan Bowl is the #1 place, which is great because I have a good working relationship with the staff. They're amazing, always accommodate all of our needs, and it's within walking distance. So they want to keep going there, I'll keep going there.
I think this is their 50th anniversary
Oh, really?
Wow.
this year down at Spartan Bowl.
Neat.
Yeah.
A very intense chess match there on the left. The kids love to compete at everything, and that includes board games and chess. So we've been teaching a lot of the kids chess because it's a thinking man's game, but it's also just a game that a lot of people know. That's a lifelong skill. You can break the ice with a lot of people by knowing how to play chess. And on the right is a couple examples of our cooking club. I believe, let's say muffins. So that's, we make banana muffins specifically quite a lot because, I get bananas for programming for their snacks, and sometimes it doesn't get eaten. I hate food waste, so we make a lot of banana bread, a lot of banana muffins, and anything sweet the kids are gonna love. So I try to mix some stuff in, get some healthy stuff. We made salsa today, getting something a little healthier, in there, but it always, the most important, they love to bake. That's always the most popular activity. So cookies, brownies, bread, anything like that. Our pool table, I enjoy that pool table a lot, full size. My dad has one in his basement. It's kind of rinky dinky one, falls over all the time. It's nice at work having a full size pool table because I love pool and love playing with the kids. It's also a game that it's just, kids always take a sec, but once they pick up on it, if they're nervous about it, they don't want to hold the stick because it feels weird, correct them a little bit, and then they'll just do it by themselves and they'll teach other people how to use it. It's kind of a great tool to help the kids teach each other. That was our community service day activity at IMMS Middle School, where we picked up garbage around campus. It was raining, about 45 degrees, and I feel bad for all of the volunteers, including my mother, who was nice enough to be one of the adult volunteers who I roped into picking up garbage on that terrible day. But all the kids had a good time at the end of it, so and that's the important part. Oh yes, one of our board members, Sarah, she brought in, she raises ducks on her property, and so, every year she brings in the ducklings and sometimes chicks and stuff, and the kids love them. They're doting over them all day, like taking turns holding them. It's really adorable. I enjoy that. And then on the right was our recycling project that we did. Was it Next?
Netrix.
Netrix.
It's a tongue twister.
We went around town. They have these bins where you put plastic in, and then we collected all of it and took it to their facility, and they melted it down and turned it into a park bench. We collected 500 pounds. Well, we collected more than 500 pounds, but they used 500 pounds of it to make a bench. So it's a pretty neat service project, just because not only is recycling important, but it's kind of nice to have that tangible result of your work. Sometimes they do these projects, they don't really get to see the end result. This was delivered right to us. They helped me put it together, and that's what we did. You collected it, you recycled everything. Here's what you get at the end of it. So that was a really cool experience. That is, I believe, fruit salad on the left. That was a fun one. I got taught how to cut a pineapple on there because I had no idea how to cut a pineapple. I was all ready to look it up on my phone, and one of the kids was like, no, I got this. I know how to do this, and showed me how to cut a pineapple.
Cool.
I believe that is Gaga Ball on the right again. That's fine. I think it's a different Gaga Ball photo. They do it a lot. We have a gardening program. Our most successful plant we have had is our raspberry bushes. They're kind of growing everywhere, which is great because I love raspberries. So we have a lot of them in our freezer right now. We're using them through baking projects throughout the year, and we have some kids who just love picking the raspberries. They'll ask me for weeks, how can we pick the raspberries? And not ready yet. And once they're ready, we get big bushels of them. And art club over there, I believe they are painting in that. With painting has been very popular. Lots of marker drawing. We got some people who were very nice to donate some advanced coloring books, the ones that have all the fancy swirls and stuff. Those have been extremely popular. And a lot of drawing. We do a lot of drawing prompts, which is a fun one. So I'll look up online, we'll mix some words together, give them a wacky thing to draw, and then we kind of show each other's results. So a lot of good times in the art club, a lot of great creativity being shown. Yes, this was our Mount Olympus field trip. This was our big trip that we did this summer. Took a lot of planning from myself and my staff, and once we got down there, we were able to take 17 kids all the way transport them from the center to Mount Olympus and back, and get them in the park, feed them, everything free of charge. So we were able to do that, and we were able to do it all within our own budget. We didn't have to fundraise or anything for this, so, and everybody got to go free. So it's a great time for everybody.
Looked like a sunny day.
It was a pretty warm day. We actually had the day was like 110 degrees was our original date. We had to postpone it because of that. And
Remember that one? The heat
Yeah.
index?
Yeah, it was like
Yeah.
110, and I was like, these kids are gonna roast because it's all concrete at the water park. So I'm glad that we postponed it. We got a much nicer day, but it was still pretty warm. But had a great time. So we recently updated one of our rooms. We're kind of one big room, but we do have one activity room that's off to the side. It's our quiet room, and the intention of our quiet room is to give kids a nice, calm place to be able to do all of their homework, or if they're just overstimulated, having a bad day, just need to be away from all the craziness that tends to happen in the main room. We have the quiet room, and the quiet room kind of went into disarray over COVID. So we redid the whole room. We pulled out everything. We repainted the walls. We added a whole bunch of new stuff to it. And right here is a project where just give the kids kind of ownership over their space. Had them paint their hands, plop it on the wall, sign their name. And this is going to be an annual thing we're just going to do at the end of every year. We're going to add new people to that wall, and I hope all of the walls in that place are full of handprints pretty soon.
All right, something slightly less interesting maybe is our annual budget. I think the good news here is we're definitely not going to go over all these categories, but the good news is we've been able, with the help certainly of McFarland School District and the Village of McFarland, a number of very generous donors throughout the community, all those contribute. We've been able to more or less get our budget balanced the last couple of years. Part of that was a COVID stimulus grant that we've been kind of slowly trickling into our operational budget over the last couple of years. But that is good news, because I know many times in the past we've come here to talk about how short we were on funding, but things definitely look better the last couple of years, and especially this, our fiscal year is the same as the calendar year. So 2023 has been a good year for us. We project, pretty much more of the same for next year. We haven't gone through our official budgeting cycle quite yet. We get to that really in October, and then try and finalize it by December. But as we kind of scan through it in preparation for this presentation, we don't see any major, knock on wood, major hiccups coming along the way, either on the expense side or in terms of decreased revenues from any particular source. So we feel pretty good all in all about the budget going forward in the next fiscal year. Then just to wrap it up, a quick slide on partnership. Again, we've been around now for 25 years. And if you just do some crude math on that, we've really partnered with the community to give back about 20,000 hours of just operating hours, just the doors open, kids coming in and out, for our middle school aged kids. We've had thousands of different unique attendees over those years. I just saw one from probably 10 or 12 years ago, Jackie Pulvermacher. Saw her at the outside of the Barbie movie. I was going out, she was going in, my wife and I talked for a little bit, and now she's an elementary school teacher somewhere in the Madison area. So it's little things like that that really, make it worthwhile in terms of keeping a place like this going for us that volunteer and that work there and stuff. Just little moments like that, seeing, not that we were the only, part of her success story, but she was part of a group of kids I remember that came in every day, and they were really, looking for a place to kind of grow, so to speak, in their middle school years. So that was great. We in terms of programming hours, if you put that on a, you take each kid and what they've done, we keep track of all the service hours and all the structured programming time that, kid by kid, we keep individual track of that data. If you extrapolate that out, we're tens of thousands of people hours that have been, enrichment through the programming activities at the center. Support, we're of course eternally grateful for support of the McFarland School District. I mean, for many years it was, relationship support, in-kind donations. Now there's also some direct funding on top of that. and that's really helped ease some of our budgetary pressure. And again, we're just very grateful, for the support that everybody's had for us over the years on this board and staff-wise. We have great staff. Erin's been in our corner for a long time as middle school principal. Hand that off to Jamie Thomas now. She sits on our board meetings. Officer Zietzma is a part of our board. Jill Rundy, long time state's school counselor of the year. Jill Rundy's on our board, so we've just had these great connections. Craig was on our board for many years, so appreciate that. And if anyone's looking to throw some extra volunteer hours in and want a place to do it, we're always welcoming for more, board members or just volunteers. So just look us up and we'll find something to do. But again, thank you very much. And if anyone's got questions or comments, that's kind of the last slide, Angie. I threw a couple in the appendix, about the asset data and all that research that went into that, if people want to review that again. But otherwise, that's what we've got for this year.
Questions? Comments?
Sure, I'll make some comments and some questions. First of all, Sean Close.
Yep.
Your background as MSCR involvement, the Boys and Girls Club, your background, college sports
Yep.
management.
Sports management.
What a great resume to help support our
Thank
middle
you.
school kids. Because you offer a diverse array of your background experiences to
Yep.
help these kids. So I think you're in the right place to help us out. What's the criteria or what's the selection process for Youth of the Month?
So first is, first I check to see if they've won it recently. I don't want repeats. I don't want the same couple kids winning it. I want as many people to experience that joy of getting. I think I've had kids who have gotten awards and have said are you sure? Me? I've never gotten an award before. And I'm like, yeah, you. Then it is, then it's attendance. I don't have to show up every day, but it's, if somebody is there 20 days out of the month versus 7 or 8, I'm probably going to lean towards the 20. And then it is, participating in service projects, participating in activities, being helpful around the club is a big one. I love to see kids mentor other kids, help out other kids with things, help them I don't know, maybe they don't know how to log into the computer and just help them with that, or they don't know how to play this board game or don't know how to shoot pool or something like that, and they help them out with that. So anybody going around being helpful with the staff, we'll ask kids to hey, can you help us move something, or can you help this person who's donated something, help bring it inside, and people will volunteer for that. So that's just kind of my criteria. I don't, it's nothing super formal. I don't keep a big checklist somewhere in my computer, but it's that, and I ask my staff when we start going the end of the month, hey, notice anybody who's been really standing out, who's been participating, who has been contributing. That is my criteria for Youth of the Month.
Okay, thanks. You talked about By Youth for Youth.
Yes.
And it was a grant?
This is a grant.
And you mentioned that it required a lot of your time and
Yes.
to write that. I would suggest, there's folks in the community that have background
Yep.
in writing grants.
Okay.
So make sure you try to tap into those
Oh,
to
so-
free up your time.
So sorry,
to
the
work with
grant
the kids.
writing process was not the issue with, it was the physical, time it took. It was mostly
Oh, to put all
keeping the
together,
kids,
that
mostly
okay.
keeping the kids on task, because it's
Okay.
in the name of the grant, it's by youth, for youth.
youth.
So this was a thing, I'm not just going to let them slack off and
Yeah.
take over halfway through. So it was a lot of helping them and getting kids into leadership roles, because they don't have a lot of experience a lot of times. So it was me telling the kids who were kind of in leadership, hey, no, this is a thing you can do. This is a thing and you don't need to do all of this. You can delegate. But it's you need to know who's doing what and where, and you need to, decide, make these decisions. And that was kind of a big thing with the kids. It was a lot of coaxing the kids too. That was most of my time, but mostly it was the kids who took the time out, and it was a lot of their time, and it was mostly a comment on not oh, this was a big burden, because it wasn't. It was a lot of fun. It was mostly saying, hey, that was a big project, and it's done, and we did it. It was more of a celebratory comment than
Okay, thank you.
anything on that. But thank you. Thank you for letting me know. I will reach
Yeah,
out if I
thanks.
need help with that.
Also, I had the opportunity to go through the youth center a few weeks ago. I dropped something off. And I would encourage other board members, if you have time, just to stop there sometime between 3 to 6, Monday through Friday. You know, some of the things I saw was, there had to be, I think I counted like, I don't know, 15 or 17 kids there. They were all engaged. They were all cooperating or collaborating with each other, depending on what they were doing. I think they were doing an activity of their interest. But probably most importantly, you talked a little about the assets and the resiliency of youth. That's where a lot of it's at. And I think the other suggestion I would have is sharing this type of presentation with the seniors here in McFarland. Because I think years ago when I was growing, there was one connotation of a youth center. But what you share here today is vastly different from what's probably a lot of older folks might think of what a youth center does and is today. I think it'd be very beneficial. I think a lot of the seniors would be very interested, especially if they have previous kids or grandchildren thinking of attending.
Sure.
the
Do
youth
you
center.
recommend that through just like the senior outreach program, Tom?
Yeah.
Just reach out
Yeah.
to them?
Yeah,
Okay.
because they
We
do
just
have-
did a presentation of the Lions Clubs, shared a lot of these
Yeah.
same slides, and they were very receptive to that too. So.
And then lastly, you have a nice board of directors there. And I certainly want to extend a thank you to them too, because they're all volunteers. I know they meet, they're deeply involved in some of the activities and fundraising efforts. So if you could thank them for their guidance and support for what is a great asset to our community.
Will do. Thank you.
Anybody else? Well, I'd just like to add, congratulations on the, making it 25 years.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there have been times where the feasibility of that youth center was in question.
Yeah.
You know, there were budgets that weren't anything like this one,
Right.
you know, in the past, and it was really kind of a, I'm not really sure where we're gonna get this stuff, but we're going to, and we're gonna make it work. So that's a tribute to you and your, I don't know, stubbornness, but it's more like passion, you know, for youth. So
Yeah.
that's a great tribute to make 25 years knowing what maybe that middle 8 or 10 was like.
Thank you. Yeah,
It
we're
was
very
difficult.
proud of what was started, what we've been able to carry on.
As
know,
you should be.
in that tradition, and we're very grateful. Again, it's not, you compliment us and we'll compliment right back to the community partners and just our Friends of the Youth Center program, how many different people donate, you know, sums that you can't even believe that come in on, you know, personal checks and stuff like that, and it's just really amazing what a community effort it really is, so.
Without great leadership, that pales also. I mean, we remember those times too.
Yeah.
But my congratulations. It's, I think it's great. One other real quick question, as far as your space, is that status quo?
Yeah, that's, of course, not an easy answer there. We've been in the former Village Library, gosh, for probably 8 or 9 years already now, maybe even 10. And it served pretty well. That said, the building is kind of aging. I think a lot of people are aware of that. With some of the changes at the municipal site this last year with the safety center opening up, now that space is, you know, sort of freed up, if you will, at the municipal center. I think many are aware that their village government is looking into converting that space into some type of a community center, for which the youth center, you know, hopefully will be a part of that. I think that's the bid going into it, is that the youth center and youth services would have a physical part of that new community center, whether it's 1-story or 2-story, that there would be physical space in there to house the youth center, and we would leave this property eventually that we're in now and transition over to that property. Operationally, there are a lot, even more questions than, you know, do we stay an independent nonprofit? Does the village government kind of absorb those operations? I think it's trending more towards the latter right now, but it's a step we just haven't quite gotten to yet in earnest. I think there's some aspirations there that have been talked about and maybe even formally recognized. That's in village board meetings. But I think the way I understand how the village is moving through this, they really want to lock down the capital, the physical aspects of it first, and then we'll get to operational aspects. But I think if, you know, Craig, if you're asking to look on the 5-year horizon, what does it look like? I think potentially it does look different. You know, it looks a new facility for sure, which would be great. I mean, we are not complaining about what we have. It's, you know, much improved over what we had previously, and we make it work.
Yes, we do.
But just today, there's emails about doors that don't open, and we've had roof leaks this summer, and things like that. And I think there's just opportunities too, not to go on too much of a tangent here, in a shared space like that. Collaboration with multi-generational stuff, with some of the library activities. I think there's just so many different possible opportunities to be in a more cohesive space like that over there, that it's really kind of exciting to think about. Good question.
Anything else?
Last, I will remind everybody here in the whole community that the Youth Center has certainly been able to support our district mission and vision. Again, the mission is meeting the needs of every learner every day. And again, these kids that go down to the Youth Center are ongoing learners there. And secondly, our vision for the district: an equitable and inclusive community committed to student belonging, achievement, and growth. So thanks for being a partner with the school district directly.
Yes.
Kudos to you.
Yes.
Your hard work is noticed and it's appreciated.
Thank you.
Don't ever forget that.
Thank you. We're humbled.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right. If there's any other questions at any time, just feel to reach out to myself or Sean, and we'll get back to you soon. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay, next, we have a presentation by Brett Jacobson
And
on
actually-
the annual process to select student representatives to the Board of Education.
And actually, Craig, could I interrupt for just one moment? We had item 4, which was public comments. We did not
Oh.
have anybody here in person, and we
Okay.
did not receive any prior to the meeting either. But I just wanted to, for purposes of the agenda and the meeting, I wanted
Yep.
to
That's
state
fine.
that. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. There he
Hi,
is.
everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, hello. Just here to hopefully report some good news that we have some continued partnership with some of our high school students involved in the Connect Club. I was able to connect with Joey Lewis and Val Vaserberg, and they are thrilled about the opportunity to continue to come to board meetings and present. I was lucky enough to see some of those last year, so we talked through it, and they are willing to continue that going into this year, starting at the next board meeting here in October. In our discussion, one thing that they were really excited about, or one thing that they really want to try to make happen this year, is to not let it turn too much into just the Joey and Val show. They would like to start to invite some other Connect Club members and maybe just some other involved high schoolers to be the presenters at board meetings throughout the year. I realized that last year, I think it was primarily them, or maybe it was only those two, but that's something that they'd like to set as a goal kind of for themselves, is to start to include some other students or other student groups in on the actual presentations, because I think they realize that they're seniors this year and they're only going to be around for the next however many months. So they would like to be able to pass that torch on at some point to some underclassmen to make sure that this is something that we can continue to have happen at board meetings. I realize that that's probably the most exciting part of most board meetings, is hearing what students are doing. I know that that's always been the most exciting part for me, is getting to hear our students report in on some of the fun stuff that they do and some of the cool things we've got going on at school. And it's a lot better than listening to me blab about it. So I appreciate that you guys are willing to have students come in and take over that piece of it. I think that that's a really neat feature. So I'm excited that the board is on board with it, and that we've got a couple of students that are ready to run with it. So I guess the formal proposal here is that we continue to utilize the Connect Club and a few of their members to be our student representatives of MHS, to be able to come to the board, each regular scheduled board meeting, and present about the goings on at MHS and any of the other kind of events that they have participated in throughout the course of those couple of weeks between board meetings.
Okay. Yeah.
Questions?
They did a great job last year. I think it's
Comments?
wonderful that they do try to, get other kids involved. I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, I know they've got some ideas of other folks that they think would be willing and able to do that job just as well as they have. So I think their wheels are turning. So I'm excited to see what they get rolling here.
Well, I know we certainly enjoyed
Yes.
each and every presentation last year, so, we weren't fooling when we said it was a high point of the meeting. They're very optimistic, they're upbeat all the time, and they say awesome like 15 times every presentation. So we enjoy it very much.
It's true.
Well, that's great. They'll be able to share the good news with them.
I think not only do we enjoy it, but also it's a direct link on what's happening with the kids and the clubs and the events here at the school.
Yeah, there's just so much that happens. So, I mean, without, someone that's directly involved in those clubs being able to report out periodically, some of it can get lost in the shuffle pretty quick. So I'm glad that we're able to report out on that stuff because there really is already, even just a couple of weeks into the school year, so many great things that have already happened. So I'm excited to see what their kind of first list looks like when they come in October.
How's the composition of the Connect Club determined? I don't remember. I'm sure someone's told me at some point.
Yeah, so their goal is to have representation in the Connect Club from every other group that is throughout the school. So when they get together as a Connect Club, they can share, hey, we're planning on doing this in this club. Anyone else have any interest in joining us? So I think they saw initially with the creation of Connect Club that there were opportunities for multiple clubs to collaborate on different initiatives. And so that's kind of their goal, is to make sure that all of the clubs are aware of what some of the individual clubs are planning. So everyone's not just doing things in their silos and realizing that there could be a lot of great overlapping opportunities throughout the school year.
Thank you.
Yeah. And admittedly, I mean, like a Joey and a Val, I mean, I know I've talked about those two, but there are just so many of our students that are involved in 4, 5, 6, 13, 100 different things. So there are definitely a couple of those students that can speak on the behalf of many different clubs and try to be that kind of unifying force.
Anything else? Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
absolutely.
taking
Thanks
the
for
time.
having me. Looking forward to being there in person sometime soon.
Excellent, excellent.
Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Have a good night.
District Administrators Report.
Excellent. So I have plenty of wonderful recognitions to share with you. One of the things I've promised to do for you is provide some updates on the strategic plan from time to time, as well as a more comprehensive update periodically. I'm going to do that tonight in the form of some recognitions and some things we've been doing as we live by our mission of meeting the needs of every learner every day. Really excited and grateful for the administrative team, especially principals, administrative assistants, and associate principals for their work on communication. So when we talk about family and community engagement, the message was clear that families wanted more information, wanted to know what was going on in the schools, wanted more consistent, predictable information. So we've been having a weekly newsletter provided to families that is consistent in structure across the buildings and have received some positive feedback about that. We're also doing a similar thing for staff across all the buildings, delivered on the same day. So that's been really beneficial, particularly just to highlight some of the things that are going on around the district. But also with communication, I'm grateful for the teachers who have been communicating with families about not just curriculum things, but things that are going on in the schools and with their students specifically, their strengths and needs. The APs have really provided a ton of leadership with the behavior response plan that we're implementing this year. Really, it was one thing to design it over the summer. It's another thing to put it into action. One of the things families have shared with us is wanting to know more about what's happening with their child in regard to behavior. And so that's something they've been implementing and with the teachers' work as well. Appreciate the leadership that the Director of Student Services, Lauren Arango, and the Student Services Coordinator, Angie Burnett, have provided regarding our attendance policies and our bullying prevention and intervention plan. those are things that kind of start from day one in the district. And so they've been bringing us together as an administrative team and guiding that work to make sure that we have consistent procedures. The bullying prevention and intervention plan is kind of a project that we're working on more so now and into October. In regard to belonging, which is, all through our strategic plan, wanted to mention appreciative for our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging coordinator, Brittany Brazel, and for her leadership in our plan to acknowledge different holidays and recognition days. I'll be talking about some of those when I talk about upcoming events, but one of the things we're trying to do is provide a consistent message to our students, staff, and families about some of these different events, and do our part to recognize the major events that are happening in our community, in our state, and in our country. So you hear some of those. Very grateful for Melissa Foll and her leadership with a great group of people who are equitable, multi-level systems of support team, who's working together to make sure we have structures that meet the needs of all learners. This is part of our educational excellence, and it's something that is long overdue in our district, and really impressed with that work. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. Of course, the beginning of the year is only successful if we have our new teachers ready to go, and the mentors have been doing such great work. They are getting their own classrooms ready or doing their own roles, and meanwhile, they're caring for someone who has a ton of questions, great questions, as a new staff member. Also appreciative for our student council organizing the homecoming events. So many events. The list of everything that was going out is going to occur was sent out by Angie Bazan, amazing leader, this weekend, and it's just so many things. Our students are really lucky, but it's through student leadership, and Angie does such a great job of getting them to be involved. Wanted to focus too on staff, welcoming students at the beginning of the day. I've had the opportunity to start my day in a different building each day for over a year now, and I think the beginning of the year, it's amazing the time our teachers spend, support staff spend checking in with kids as they come in, greeting them very pleasantly, but then identifying the kids that need a little extra attention to ease into their start of their day and problem solving. It is intense. It is intense. If you're not watching, you might miss it because they do it so subtly, but so well. Appreciate our APs, SRO with Officer Zietzma, all the safety things that have been put into place. Drills are starting. We've done a reunification training for staff and students on our protocols. Excellent. And lastly, for my recognitions, wanted to recognize Alicia Fix for her leadership with MRAP. The list came out of some of the activities that are being offered. You have adult classes on a variety of topics. So it's just a great connection between the district and the community, but also new activities for our students, robotics, chess, fencing, just really exciting. And then also some other celebrations. I'm going to share my screen so you can see some of the exciting things that are going on with our photos here today. And we have a lot of fun things. This was one that I think is just so exciting, is this idea of Mr. Otteson and Mrs. Hershey before school. Kids are out there, some are playing. Well, why don't we just sing and have a little performance out there? So I'm sorry I missed that. That would have been amazing. What a cool thing to do for them. Exciting thing there. We also have a bug visitor at recess. Very exciting. Whenever a student finds a bug, it's a big deal. So I wanted to celebrate that. The staff welcome back days. This is the middle school doing some challenge activities, some connecting activities on the left, and then part of it is to have a food thing with Jamie. She's very proud of the quality of her pancakes. She takes great pride in her pancake making abilities. So she's got some tips and tricks she shared with me, and staff always appreciate that. She goes, out of our way for that. The first week of school, this is also the middle school, their opening assembly, they do it in the stadium with some fun activities, have a relay. No one was hurt in that relay, and a really fun activity. This is the high school staff with their annual, they like to do a photo, at a drone photo. The staff, they can spell those 3 letters there. Did well. I'm not sure how long it took them to get into that shape. There was a lot of stress in terms of that, but doesn't that look good? Very
Looks
nice.
very good.
Symmetrical. Very proud of them. Some accounting students doing a fun review game. One of the things that, as a district, we're really committed to is providing engaging activities, because especially at the high school, when you have a 90-minute class, it's got to be up and moving. The days of sitting and lecturing are long since gone, so appreciate his creativity. Spartan headquarters, what a great job they've done. They were really selling stuff at that tailgate, by the way. Doing a great job leading that. Such a neat thing, this business within our school. And speaking of that, we got the marketing class. They did escape room activity. Those are always fun. We've actually done those with staff too. But again, engaging activities, and they're learning at the same time, whether they realize it or not. This was the staff welcome back event.
What is that?
So that would be me in an inflatable cow costume, celebrating a culture of warmth. I've gotten a lot of interesting feedback on that presentation, and it's interesting because staff really expect that that's what I'm going to wear at all times throughout my job. So that has not been the case. That has not been the case. But it was a fun, lighthearted way to start the year. They had enough serious things to worry about. But that cultural warmth is something that is a theme this year, and we are really celebrating. We also had a nutrition staff training days. You see them putting out a fire there. But it's so important that they have annual training to make sure we're up to date with the safety protocols, handling food and the machinery that they use, the equipment that they use. It is very important that they get those annual trainings, and they have just done a phenomenal job for the start of this year. I eat school lunch every day, and the students just love it too. Very creative meal options, some new ideas that have come up. So good stuff. We had a natural circles of support, professional development, so you can see that optional for staff. They are compensated for coming, but that's not why they're there. They're compensated with learning. So a nice group of people representing all buildings, working together to make sure that all of our students feel successful and that they belong. In terms of our relationship with the Ho-Chunk Nation, we actually have on our staff, Joe Minarski is a dedicated building sub who gives tours to our staff of the effigy mounds. And he is pretty fancy pants with the former president of the Charles E. Brown Archaeological Society. So I've been on one of his tours, really cool, and you can see staff out there at the beginning of the year. So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think that is my slides. Upcoming events, as well, past, but wanted to acknowledge, September, right, is Attendance Awareness Month, appropriately, as well as Suicide Prevention Month. So we've sent out some information to families and to students about that as part of that month. Friday was a big day. We had Hispanic Heritage Month starting. Rosh Hashanah began at sunset, and POW MIA Recognition Day. September 16th is Mildred Fish Harnack Day, one of the observance days that is legislated in the state of Wisconsin. MFH, as I refer to her, was actually one of those people that she's the only native-born American known to be executed by the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. And being verified by our board historian. During World War II, she became a spy and provided important secrets and information to the United States and Allied forces. It's a pretty cool thing. Born in Milwaukee. Tomorrow is National IT Professionals Day, so we are so fortunate to have the amazing technology support and services in our district. Wednesday is Wisconsin Day, and also also a required observance day in the state of Wisconsin. MHS Open House is coming up. Friday's the Staff Development Day. Of course, the Community Festival kicks in as well. We have the ceremony, the land acknowledgement ceremony with amazing speakers, performers that will be coming. One thing I wanted to point out that I don't think I have shared with you, but, and thank you to Angie Stroud for getting us the flags, but we do have a Ho-Chunk flag right here in our very own boardroom by President Howry. And we're getting one we have received them, one for each building as well. So if you're able to make the 23rd, great. Yom Kippur starts as well over the weekend. Bullying Awareness Day coming up. Francis Willard Day coming up on the 28th. Guess what I'm going to say about that? Required Observance Day in the state of Wisconsin. An educator and women's rights activist from Janesville. And then October, we have a lot of stuff coming up before the next board meeting. But that month is National Principals Month, Down Syndrome Awareness Month, National Bullying Prevention Month, and LGBTQIA plus History Month. So a lot of major things. When we meet next on October 2nd, it's also National Custodial Workers Day. And we have an amazing team. That is a lot of me. Any questions or comments from the board?
Couple things.
Yeah.
At Wabisa, Mr. Otteson, and I think was it the choir teacher?
No, it was orchestra.
Orchestra, excuse me. You know, what a great way to start the day for kids, to get them into that mood or mode.
Positive.
You're going from being really active on the playground to, joining that group and singing. It's just, a very effective way for kids to start school.
Isn't that neat?
It's a great mindset.
Very clever.
Get that. And then secondly, as a board, I know during my first term, the board wanted the teachers to be aware of what the board was doing and some decisions that the board was doing. Because we weren't quite sure if some of our work was getting conveyed to teachers. So with this new district staff newsletter that's going out, will there be a section that talks about board news or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I'm glad you brought that up. We were just talking about that. I have some ideas about that.
Okay,
So, and also for families as well in
Yes.
that newsletter, providing, a reference to the agenda, links to the video if people want to watch it. So again, making that as accessible as possible because that's something the board has expressed numerous times.
Yeah. I think in addition to that, decisions that have come
Yes.
from the board.
Yep.
So, because if it's one thing that really irritates me is when I hear people, I have no idea what the board's doing. Yeah, do they make decisions or not? Yeah.
Yep.
So if we can, improve that certain area, that would be great.
Yes, that is on the list.
Good.
Whew. Already on there. Good.
And I would say, I would also like to second your recognition about the communication consistency that has definitely been visible from a parent's perspective. So that is, it's great to have kind of a similar thing to look at from each, venue, from each school. And it just makes it so much easier to digest and like to know one place to go. That is really helpful. So thank you for doing that. I had another one. I don't remember what it was. So.
That's okay.
So, just thanks.
Awesome. You'll think of it.
I will think of it eventually.
What's going on for the open house on the 20th?
I think people can come and meet the teachers, walk the schedule, that kind of thing. They've done that for many years
Okay.
here at the high school. And then coming up, there's another one. CPS maybe?
Yes.
Does that sound right?
It's in October, I think.
Yep. But they've done that for a long time. The high school doesn't have a drop-off day, the welcome, I think we called it back, welcome back event. K-8 did that. Well, 4K8 did that. So this is kind of their replacing that.
Yeah.
And there's lots of information available to families, so it's really become a pretty big deal.
The SEP's open house is Thursday, October 5th.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Oh, I
4:30
remembered.
to 6:30.
I also remembered what I was going to say. Just related to new staff onboarding and also like the new positions in student services. We've had the opportunity to get to know them a little bit better in this first couple of weeks of school. And I think my kiddos have received a little extra attention that maybe they couldn't have otherwise without those extra positions. So that is, that feels really good as a parent and is also noticeable. So that's great to see at the high school. I imagine it's probably the same feeling at the other schools too, but yeah, so that was,
That's great to hear.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the hope is that they can be more proactive and less reactive and start addressing some of the things that when you're short-staffed, I can't do
Right.
that.
Right.
So
Yeah,
we're
so that's
excited
great.
to hear that
Yeah,
feedback.
that's awesome.
Okay. Anything else? Business managers report. Mr. Mahoney, welcome.
Thanks. I don't have any fancy pictures with me though, just
That's okay.
just a PowerPoint that looks a little bit similar to what we've been using since last year, November. So we're getting closer to having a final budget and all the fun stuff that goes with it. So this evening, you have a action item on the annual meeting notice and budget hearing, which will take place in October. But let's kind of dive through a few things that are always kind of built into this and get us ready for that annual meeting. A calendar that barely anybody can read on the screen. But again, following where we have been, today's September 18th, so our action item would be making sure that our legal notices are prepared and sent out to the newspaper so that there is communication to our community legally. Next slide. So what will change? I wonder if you guys are getting sick of this slide, but our third Friday in September count just took place last Friday, but it's really not just last Friday. It's a review of before the third Friday and after the third Friday. So that's how we find out who is really with us and make sure that our documentation is up and running. So we have equalized value, we're gonna cover a little bit about that, state equalization aid, we're gonna cover a little bit about that tonight, revenue cap and final tax levy amounts, and revised budget. Again, all of this information is still being in the process. So, next slide. Revenue cap, I know everybody can read all those numbers, so I'm gonna boil it down to the next slide. I'm not giving Angie a minute to even do anything else. So,
This is much better, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think so too, because I just really like to highlight the revenue cap as a formula. And you take the cap, you subtract off the aid, and that's what equals your levy. And for our purposes, the revenue cap controls your general fund and your capital fund. So your revenue cap, which is about just shy of 28 million for this coming year, as estimated. Again, this is all gonna change because we won't have the final from DPI until October 15th, which is 8 shopping days before our annual meeting. So we will be doing some calculating there. You subtract out the state equalization aid, which reduces the property tax, and you come up with, our general fund will be about 12.8 million, plus another $249,000 for our capital fund. That's been our tradition, that we have a little bit of capital fund money. Some interesting numbers and figures to the side is over the last 6 years, our revenue cap has only grown by 21.26%. That's 4% on average. As you know, our expenditures, and I have a slide on this later, we're seeing our salaries and benefits over that same period of time at about 5.5%. Utilities are 10, 12%. So we certainly are, and we'll have another slide here to talk about what's up next, but something that's really fascinating to me is that
our general fund, it's been up 8.69%. You can't read that number up there over 6 years. That's 1% growth each year. Our infill for the last 2 years has been, last year and this year, significantly the ESSER 3 funds. So that's the revenue cap. Yes, we can move along. Now again, we're gonna look at a document called Equalized Aid. And there's a lot of numbers there too. So we're gonna skip past that one. And again, we're kind of going back to our Equalized Aid. So we are looking at about $500,000 more. That's the green area of the middle, about 14.8 million. That was the July 1 aid estimate from the state of Wisconsin. So again, we don't get to know that exact number until October 15th. So then again, for the annual meeting, we will provide on October 23rd the updated final numbers. The next slide talks about, this is something that always confuses even sometimes people that I work with a lot, is how is it distributed? How is that levy distributed? Well, it's distributed by the portion of property value that a person has as a percentage of the rest of the community that's in our school district. So right now we're looking at just over $2.1 billion in value for this school district. Now when it gets to being someone's property tax bill, it gets even further confusing because we know what an equalized value is, which is a mill rate per $1,000 of value. And at this moment, I'm estimating about $8.35. In the last 6 years, that's 29% down from where it previously was. But that's because our equalized value is up 61%. Now that's both additional property value that's been brought into our community and then people's existing homes that have increased. So it's a very complicated system, and I have a slide that I'm working with, and I hope this kind of helps the board tonight, and it gives me a good reflection point of, will it be something that I can share more out at the annual meetings? So it's coming up. So we go from cap to levy again. You have an estimated cap, you minus the state aid, the equalized aid, and that equals your levy. And then it's distributed. But the big thing I really always want people to take away is the levy is increasing based on the cap we have of about 3% for this coming year. Well, that's pretty low. And one of the most significant things that is occurring in what occurred in our state biennial budget is, this is my favorite part, the school levy tax credit. If you don't know what that is, on an individual's property tax bill, and this happens, the lower half happens to be someone's property tax bill for 2022. So last year happens to be someone in this room, in this district. And so everybody's like, ooh, I better remember what I had last year. But the school levy tax credit is money that the legislature indicates that they're helping fund schools. They're not helping fund schools, they're reducing the amount of tax burden for our property tax burden. That's great, and it's wonderful. But this year, moving forward for 22 to 23, they are increasing that levy credit by 27% on average across the state. So I thought it'd be interesting if we took last year's tax bill for school district tax only, and for this individual, unnamed, in this room, paid $3,685 for their district tax. However, it was reduced by $625. So their net school district tax for last year, school district tax only, again, there's other jurisdictions, just over $3,000, $3,060. Now let's say that our levy is only going up about 3%. Well, that person is going to pay about $110 more this year if equalized value didn't change. Remember, equalized value is just a distribution model. So if it stayed the same, you're still having to distribute to all those people that are involved. So $110 more. Our legislature, with a 27% on average increase, so again, this will not be the actual for this person, but it's gonna be pretty darn close. If their property is increasing on the average equalized value, but that person will see a $169 increase in their school levy tax credit. So, their school levy portion that they are contributing to the school district is gonna go down by about $60. That's a significant message for our community, I believe, in the fact that while the state is pumping more money into state aids, this is counted part of it. This is a portion of it. But it doesn't come to the school district to have additional resources or to not have to rely on one-time money from the ESSER funds. It is a direct credit to the property tax rate. Again, what a wonderful thing. But it is a significant story that, again, will probably play into our referendum planning. So,
Can I ask a question?
you bet.
So is that effectively saying that the state is giving us more money, but then property owners get more of a tax credit? So then our school district is getting less money? And then that might be why we go to referendum? Okay.
So another way to look at it is, in the support of school funding is defined by what the legislature puts forward. They consider this to be part of school funding, but it's not going to the school district to be able to keep up with its expenses or offer more supports for its students without going to referendum.
Okay.
So, the next slide actually has what's been going on with the school levy credit. And again, you probably can't read, that's pretty small. I'm even having to put my goggles on over here. So they are jumping from $940 million for last year to what's known as the 2024 for them, to $1.2 billion. And then the following year is another 7% increase. So it is significant. Another significant thing that falls into this is the fact that there are districts that had successful referendums. So the district levy gets factored into this over a 3-year period of time. So the 21 through 23, there'll be some folks that will receive a little bit more than the 27%, some will be less. And then it depends on how it's, this is probably more information than, it's fun for all the business managers because we've been talking about the fact that some municipalities use TIF in and some use TIF out, equalized values, and that can make it a little bit more wonky. But again, if we just kind of focus on the average is a 3% increase in our levy, and on average across the state, there's going to be someone getting exactly 27% of credit increase, and therefore, in a stable situation, some of our taxpayers are going to see less just from that credit. '23-24 revenue, I've covered this at our last meeting, but again, we did get a little bit of a revenue cap adjustment of $325 per student. That is nearly about $600, probably too low for what would have needed for this year with regards to funding if we didn't have the ESSER funds. I had mentioned our aid estimate was up about $500,000 compared to last year. And then our property tax for general fund is up about $428,000. And again, we're using $3 million of our remaining ESSER funds as recommended by Joint Finance a few years ago. So we're doing
And that
what-
will exhaust?
That will exhaust it completely. Our expenses, again, mentioned about 5.5% in wage changes and benefit. Covers 76% of our budget. You know, and I think at the last meeting I also talked about, you know, we're early estimate of just getting us ready for 24-25 would have a referendum of about 3.4 million. So, next steps. Certainly tonight is the annual meeting postings action item, which is September 18th. We'll be getting our final equalized value from DOR. Early estimate was about 12% growth. Some of that, again, is new, and some of that is just the natural for those that have property that's existed. October 15th, we received the final DPI 8 certification, which means then we can finalize our revenue cap, and then also what our final numbers are for our actual levy. And then October 23rd, favorite day of the year, our annual meeting. And then beyond that, some fun talking about our referendum for fiscal year 24-25 and beyond. That concludes my report. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or if you ever have follow-up questions, suggestions, please feel free to email me or call.
The third Friday count, I don't know if it's been finalized completely yet, but is it where you thought it was gonna be? Have there been some pretty big shifts?
Yeah, you know, compared to what I previously reported, which in the summer, we were down about 78 kids, and then we were starting to get closer to about maybe 55 kids than expected, and we have seen some shifts. Our kindergarten class grew a little bit, so that's good because we did decide to keep 8 sections, and that really helped out. Our 4K is still limited. It's low. But, you know, we have pretty good in growth at the middle school, 6th grade and 9th grade, which again then impacts what do we do with open enrollment for future years, because you can't overpromise and then see the fact that we have trends continuing of 6th grade and 9th grade in growth, because you could be then having to face a really difficult thing, which is saying, well, thanks for coming to us from kindergarten to 5th grade. We don't have any room. So we've always based our policies on and our recommendations in January on, if we're gonna welcome in new students, we're keeping them for their entire time, so.
Okay.
And keeping them for the entire time, that's mandated now, isn't it, or is it not?
No.
It is not, okay.
I think that 6th grade class is right around 200.
Yep.
But it's good that we do that. Educationally, it's so sound to keep these kids in
Yep.
the school district. I mean,
Yep.
just-
As always, well
Yeah.
done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done and easy to understand.
That's
So
why it's well
thanks
done.
for doing it.
Trying. It's a complicated little thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Okay, next would be our action items. Okay. First is action on the 2023 to 2025 McFarland Youth Center Memorandum of Understanding. Administration recommends approval of the attached Memorandum of Understanding between the McFarland School District and the McFarland Youth Center. I would look for a motion to approve the Memorandum of Understanding.
Sure, I'll move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the McFarland School District and the McFarland Youth Center as presented.
Thank you, Tom. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Thank you, Megan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Second action item is action on 2023-2024 process to select student representatives to the Board of Education. Per policy 0141, annually, the school board shall approve the selection process established by the high school administration and the student council. I would look for a motion to approve the before-mentioned process.
I'll move to approve the selection process for student representation at board meetings as presented by the high school administration and the student council.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Bruce? Any additional discussion?
Is there some reason why we can't identify the student reps in spring for the following school year? And I know they're talking about, mentoring incoming students.
I don't know.
To me, it would just make more sense is to start the school year off knowing who the Connect reps will be to the school board.
Well, we've never done it, so at this point, it'd be, yeah, is that a recommendation that we do in the future, is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I would make that an addendum to this recommendation.
Does it need to be, I can just add it to my calendar of topics.
Sure.
Yeah, we just
That'd
need
be
to do it
perfect.
annually.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Mhm.
Do you want it after the school board, after the new school board members have taken?
Sure, that, I would
May.
say in April or May.
Do we need to change the motion?
No, not for this year.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Action on McFarland High School early graduation request. MHS administration recommends approval of the attached MHS early graduation request. I would look for a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the
Tom?
attached MHS early graduation request as recommended by the administration.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Megan, discussion?
I think it's a great option for kids.
Absolutely.
I have
agree.
just a question. I noticed that for this one specifically, the student was requesting to graduate early and really didn't start this semester. So they were requesting to start or graduate early as of August 30th or 31st.
Right.
What happens if this doesn't get approved and they're not currently a student?
I have to say, I wanted the same thing.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
I have no issue with this, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, shouldn't these be presented a little sooner?
Yes.
Because this is now 2 or 3 weeks after.
Yeah, and typically, this is
I was
a
gonna say.
significant exception. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
ever
That's
happened
what I was wondering.
before. It was just because of unique work that was done over the summer, which I think is less
Okay.
common, but I think that's a good point.
Very good point.
Yep. Good.
And that has been communicated,
Okay,
that we want to just avoid this whenever possible.
okay.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
But of course, we didn't want to make them go a semester
Mhm.
either, so.
Probably not.
Good point.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Action on notice of annual meeting and budget summary to be published prior to the annual meeting. At this time, we seek board action on approving the attached budget summary to be published prior to the annual meeting that will be held on October 23rd, 2023. This action item is necessary at this time so that proper notice to the community is posted. I would look for a motion to approve.
I can make that. I move to
Bruce?
approve the publishing of the budget summary as presented in preparation for the annual meeting to be held on October 23rd, 2023.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Kate, thank you. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Action on second reading and adoption of policies. 5200, attendance. 5410, promotion, placement, and retention. 7440, facility security. 7544, use of social media. 8800, religious activities and observances. 8802, patriotic activities and observances. Administration recommends the approval of the second reading and adoption of these policies. I would look for a motion.
I'll move to approve the
Thank you,
second
Megan.
reading of an adoption of policies 5200, 5410, 7440, 7544, 8800, and 8802 as recommended by administration.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Tom, discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Action on first reading of policies. Policies 5517, student anti-harassment, and 5771, search and seizure. Administration recommends approval of the first reading of these policies. I would look for a motion to approve.
I move to approve the first reading of policies 5517 and 5771 as recommended by administration.
Thank you, Kate. Do I have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Bruce. Discussion?
I have some questions here.
Sure.
On policy 5717, page 2, which happens to be the second page of 11. Under days, up on top, there's notice definitions plain days. Talks about business days, when the district office is open. My question is breaks. The district office may be open during Christmas break or spring break, so those are counted. Is that correct? It's not student days.
Except for state-recognized holidays.
So it would include non-student days, but when the district office is open.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
Yeah, business days excluding state-recognized holidays.
Great.
So if it was over a winter break, you would have Christmas, would be a holiday that is a state-recognized holiday, so that would be not a business day.
For those 1 or 2 days. And then on page 3 of 11, number 3, down below, inappropriate boundary invasions. That paragraph there, boundary invasions may be appropriate or inappropriate. And they list a couple examples. For example, a kindergarten who needs support toileting. Okay, that would be an appropriate time. But then coach touching a student during wrestling or football can be appropriate. That's sort of a double standard. We see that on the football field or elsewhere, and all of a sudden, kids think they might be able to do it elsewhere. How do we differentiate? How do we explain to kids it's okay here, but it's not okay there? Just because we've done it this way traditionally, is it appropriate? Because it could be quite subjective. I just bring that
Does
up.
the language need to be changed?
Well, the question is all inappropriate boundary invasions may include any touching, except for developmentally, like in kindergarten.
Yeah.
When I look at that
Yeah.
language, what I see is, for example, is the language used, and then can be appropriate. It doesn't say is appropriate, so I think within that, if I'm, showing a wrestling move as a coach to a wrestler, that would be appropriate in that setting. Whereas if I showed a wrestling move to a kindergartner at recess, that may not be appropriate, because that's not the agreement of the scenario. So I don't know if a language change, certainly could make one, but that's what I think it's trying to
Yeah,
say.
and I tend to agree with that. We would understand that, but do kids understand that?
And how about athletic trainers?
Exactly.
How are those situations addressed?
I don't have any suggestions for that. I just bring it up as a big question mark.
And I think, when I think of boundary invasions, largely that's, in many cases, that's defined upon the context of the situation and how it's perceived by the student, how it's received. But it's hard to define those. I think it's dangerous in some ways to even put examples in there because,
Same.
you know,
Because where do you draw the line then?
right.
So maybe we just take out the examples.
We certainly could.
And then,
Is that something, you know, you're proposing?
I would propose that we take out the examples.
So do you mean the examples of like a kindergartner after a toileting accident or a coach touching a student during wrestling or football? Or do you mean the examples of inappropriate boundary invasions?
I would take out the examples cited, like toileting at the kindergarten level and during football and wrestling.
Okay.
Mhm. So pretty much from, for example, through grooming?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I just think once you start citing examples.
I
we-
agree.
And we know they can't be all inclusive, so maybe we just don't have examples. And then on the next page, number 15, being overly touchy with students. To me, that's really subjective. I mean, I don't
Very.
know if that should even be in there if we don't have a better descriptor than that.
If you put it in quotes, it's probably not very,
Yeah.
it's probably pretty subjective, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. There seems to be some interest from the,
Yeah, I agree with that, Tom.
So I would suggest that we remove that
Yeah,
item.
yeah.
Number 17, getting a student out of class to visit with a staff member. You know, I found that interesting, and I know why they have that in there, but there are times when people do get students out of the class. Might be the nurse, might be student services, might be the mentor. I just want to make sure that it's saying what we want it to say.
I feel like that one, because it says to visit with the staff member, might feel different, but maybe we want
Oh, yeah.
to redefine that, like out of class for anything that's not educational related, or, you know what I mean? Because I think that's maybe using that word visit as a more defining factor than it probably actually conveys.
Visit could be a hot word, based on
That's what I
some
mean.
history. in
That's
the-
what I mean, yeah, like I think it's a little vague,
Yeah, that's a good
to your
point.
point.
Do you have your thesaurus with you?
I mean, I have a computer.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we would reword that.
I'm not sure either. I mean, it does say may, right? All of these are mays.
If I'm the only one, I'm just basing this on previous experience here in the district.
Okay.
Maybe saying something like getting a student out of class to meet regarding a non-school sponsored topic, or, you know, something. If you use school sponsored, then the assumption would be that that's related to class or
Mhm. Yeah.
a club versus something unrelated.
Yeah.
Maybe in a student out of class for student purpose. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, that's, it's a little vague. And I mean, these are, again, examples, but
Right.
I think this is a different type of example that you do want to include, because it gives, you know, the ideas of what might be inappropriate that are in the more gray area.
Well, for example, if this is in the handbook, and a student goes home and says, I didn't go with this person because it says, you know, student to visit with a staff member is deemed inappropriate, or may be deemed inappropriate. And that we know we do have to pull some kids out of class once in a while to further, you know, provide support to them or whatever it is.
Yep.
Do we want to change anything around, any verbiage around?
I mean, I think, I like all of your suggestions, Tom. I think,
It could be getting a student out of class with no educational value or something.
But that's kind of subjective too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just,
I think I like Kate's language.
Outside the daily curriculum or lesson plan? I don't know.
Or could,
Not
Just
non-school related.
non-school related.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
yeah,
That's probably the cleanest.
Yeah,
mm-hmm,
because that covers a lot of ground.
mm-hmm,
Purpose, non-school related purpose.
Yeah.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay.
And
Anything
then,
else?
yes, page 5 of 11, under disability harassment. We talk about some areas here, but one thing we don't talk about are the transgender harassment or LGBT harassment, or is that in another area? Because we talk about disability harassment.
So that's a good point. I feel like we should not put it under disability harassment only because, you know, it's not a disability. But I do agree with you that it should be addressed.
Maybe it deserves a category of its own.
It is in our harassment statement, so you would think that that should be included here.
Or at least
Because
referred
it's
to
the
that.
enforce, it's
Yeah.
in that third paragraph on the first page. Is that what you're talking about, Aaron?
Well, I just mean like
The resolution?
Our statement that we put on all of our documents. It
Oh,
includes
yeah.
in-
I think
yeah,
that's
protected
basically.
class, yeah, that's probably what you're talking about.
Hmm.
But there's a bunch of other things there that we don't include.
Hmm. That's
don't
true.
talk
We do call out a lot of the different types of harassment, but not
do.
including that.
In this particular
In the
policy.
standard disclaimer, that comes out after every,
Well, we,
But-
like, we have that basic list, but
Yeah.
then these other detailed, like
There's Title
race and color
IX.
harassment and religious creed harassment. You know,
almost
I almost
it's
think
almost
it needs its own little paragraph
Yeah.
that's,
It does.
you know, harassment related to gender
What-
identity and sexual orientation.
I can check on that. There probably is, because there's probably some Title IX language that may be in policy, other policies
Okay.
that would cover that. But I will check.
It is interesting that that it doesn't necessarily define all of the ones listed in the main.
No, it doesn't.
So that's interesting. I guess I'd be curious to know specifically why some of them were pulled out and not others.
would that have been at Neola's behest, or would we have
Wonder.
done that?
We wouldn't have done that.
I don't think we would.
Yeah, I'm not sure. How did they decide which ones to highlight?
They might just not have caught up to,
Exactly.
mm, oh, well, this one is,
I will check on that before the second reading.
okay.
And then, are we ready to do
Yep.
one? Page 8 of 11. Halfway down, there's a one-sentence paragraph that talks about, to the extent required by law or permitted by the district, the parties may be represented at their own cost at any of the above described meetings or hearings. And my question is, what parties are we talking about? Because I wasn't quite sure.
It would seem that, for the way I'm reading this policy, is that it's anyone who is accused of harassment or is an alleged victim of harassment. So the complainant, I guess, is the term that they're using,
Yeah.
or the alleged, I don't know what they use.
So
Offender
really
is the word I
anyone.
use, but yes. Mhm.
So really anyone,
Mhm.
any of the parties involved.
So if it's a teacher, a staff member, a board member that's been accused of it,
Mhm.
we could be represented at our own cost, though.
Right,
Is
yeah,
that
the district will
Correct.
pay for,
And then the last paragraph on 8:11, page 8 of 11, just a grammatical error in the second, I guess it's one big sentence, the first sentence. We have to change the R to is. During the course of an investigation, the CEO will instruct the person who are interviewed or who is interviewed.
Oh, mhm.
Just,
We'll instruct
An agreement.
each who interviewed about the importance, each what? Each,
Who are
the CO will instruct each
will instruct
each person.
each person
Who
who
are-
are interviewed,
or
persons,
who is
or
interviewed
who is interviewed.
about the importance of
yeah, because
maintaining
they took
confidentiality.
out that part, so now it is.
Mhm.
It is, should be singular, thank you.
Mhm.
And then page 9 of 11, right at the top, directives during investigation. And my question is, how do we determine if it's going to be a paid or unpaid leave of absence under administrative leave?
Yeah, so those are,
Is that right? How do you determine that, Aaron?
yeah, really it is based on the evidence that you have at the time that you're making a decision.
Mhm.
A paid leave is typically used when you're really at the start of an investigation and you don't want to penalize someone with the loss of income when it could turn out to be a false allegation. When people have unpaid leave is when you have enough evidence initially to determine that a significant violation has occurred. And, you know, typically in my experience has been paid leave. That's been my experience. People have had, been suspended without pay as a disciplinary consequence, but I don't know that we have even historically as a district used unpaid leave during an investigation.
And that's why I bring it up. Because during some of those investigations, the person was found guilty of whatever they were charged of. Is there anything that stops us from having it being unpaid, and then once everything's settled, if they aren't guilty, we give them retroactive pay?
I suppose
Because otherwise,
you
if they're found
could.
guilty, you know, we've had them here for months, only that they're going to do something different now.
To
Just
me,
says, to me, it's just a waste of taxpayers' money,
mhm.
those that are found guilty.
Innocent till
disagree.
proven guilty.
That's what I was gonna
Would-
say. I don't disagree
would
with what you're
imply that
saying.
Paid leave is the more appropriate,
If there was a way to,
maybe not the cleanest or the least messy, I don't know.
What
I
we
mean,
have
if there's
That's always
typically
messy.
done, if, assuming the person isn't terminated, what we have done is then issue days of suspension without pay. So then, once that decision's made, they're, you know, but they don't lose their compensation during that paid leave because the length of time for the investigation varies on a lot of
Oh.
purposes. I mean, some of that's on us too,
I
right?
understand
'Cause,
that, yeah.
you know, and so they're not accountable. I suppose in a case of termination, where they're no longer working with us, you don't have that flexibility, but I think that's just the risk you take when you do paid leave.
Is there any way to retrieve that money back if they're found guilty of the charge?
That's an interesting.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I don't think so.
Because what we're doing is we have someone on leave,
Mhm.
and someone has replaced them, okay?
In most cases.
Yes, so we're paying two positions
Mm-hmm.
for the service of one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Yeah.
It's just a concern I have,
Mhm.
you know? Trying to do the right thing, but, so, it's just a comment. I don't expect any change.
Yeah, right. We want to have the flexibility that's included in here, but I appreciate the sentiment, and certainly we don't want to, belabor any investigation
Right.
unnecessarily.
That's all I have for this one.
Anybody have anything else?
No, thank you.
There's
Those
no other
were.
discussion. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Are you talking about,
First reading.
yep,
Yep.
5517?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yep.
And
Opposed?
55,
Oh, yeah, so-
5771 as well.
So is there any discussion about the 5771?
I'm sorry. I
Right.
jumped the gun. No?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Do we have a breathalyzer here in the high school?
We don't.
We don't.
We don't have it on staff.
But they've
on
used one in the
hand.
past, probably
On hand.
borrowed from the
Through
police station?
through a police officer, yes.
Okay. And then on page 2 of 3, parking permit not required. Or a student may bring a vehicle on school property without a permit. A school administrator with reasonable suspicion to believe the search will produce evidence of a violation of a particular law, school rule, or condition that endangers the safety or health of the student driver, or others, should request written consent to search the vehicle. So let's say there's an activity here at the high school, athletic activity. The car didn't have a park permit to park here, but we want to search it. So the student has to give their approval for someone to search it. Is that right?
Mhm.
So is there a check-off thing that we hand that student, or how does the student give us permission?
Typically, I will tell you, it typically hasn't happened written consent. Typically, it's been verbal request, a verbal consent.
Okay.
So, we have the K-9 unit come, they hit on a car, we bring the person out, and we say, can we search your vehicle? They say yes, we do it.
Okay.
Actually, that's one where to be honest, now that I think about it, the law enforcement is involved in that. So I don't know that we've ever searched a vehicle without law enforcement being involved.
Okay.
So that's why we haven't used written consent, because we always have the law enforcement
They're
there.
here, yeah.
Anytime you're doing something that, I'm trying to think of a school rule where we would ever search a car, but I can't think of one.
Okay, thanks.
They're more so a violation of law.
So it kind of sounds like what I'm hearing is that in practice, if there is suspicion, you typically call law enforcement?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we often have law enforcement present in many searches. We typically do them with law enforcement present.
But to your point, I think it would probably be good to have some kind of documentation other than verbal.
If we're the ones doing the
Yeah, right.
search.
And if the law enforcement wasn't available for some reason,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because you
That's
still want
what-
to search the vehicle.
That's what it would say we would need.
And then the last suggestion I have is use of dogs. In the opening paragraph there, they talk about specially trained dogs. And then in A, B, and C, we just talk about the dog or the dogs. I would suggest that we add specially trained dogs to each of those, that A, B, and C.
So would you change the heading too?
Yes, I would. I mean, use of dogs just seems so generic. And they could be canine dogs or specially trained dogs.
I don't see where that should be a bother at all. It's better.
Good catches, Tom.
Anything else? In that case,
There we go.
all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:50.
Oh, we need a motion.
Oh, we didn't do that?
No.
I'm sorry. I would look for a motion for adjournment.
I will make that motion.
Jumped the gun just a little bit there.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and we are adjourned at 8:50. How about that?